There's a new report out that Planned Parenthood will be offering free abortions and vasectomies at the Democrat National Convention, which kicks off today in Chicago. Now, this story initially sounded like fake news to me. Not because Kamala and the rest of the leading Democrats don't lust for the blood of innocent babies, they do, but because any man who would attend the DNC has obviously already been long ago. If Democrat activists really wanted to improve the health of attendees, I suspect free monkeypox shots would go a lot further. But in any case, that is not being offered, while the abortions and the vasectomies are, according to a post from the Planned Parenthood Great Rivers branch. All jokes aside, this is obviously demonic. It's one thing to twist yourself into the logical pretzels necessary to kill babies in extreme cases or as a lesser evil or something. But it's quite another to consecrate your political convention with the blood of innocents. In a just country, the people responsible for this would be imprisoned. In Biden's America, in maybe Harris's America, the people responsible for this might very well hold on to power. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. Remember Matthew Perry, the actor from Friends who died because of a drug overdose? A woman who goes by the name Ketamine Queen has been charged in his death, even though he took the drugs himself. We'll get to what that means for future policy, because the Democrats have a lot to learn from that, but even the Republicans have a lot to learn from that simple fact about an old sitcom actor from the 90s. First, though, I want to tell you about preborn. Go to preborn.com/Knowles. When a woman experiences an unplanned pregnancy, she often feels alone and afraid. Too often, her first response is to seek out an abortion, because that's what left-wing institutions have conditioned her to do. But because of the generosity of listeners like you, that search may lead her to a preborn clinic where she will choose life. Preborn offers God's love and compassion to hurting women and provides free ultrasounds to introduce them to the life growing inside them. This is how Preborn saves 200 babies every single day. Thanks to the DailyWire's partnership with Preborn, we are able to make our powerful documentary, Choosing Life, available to all on DailyWire Plus. This film presents the undeniable truth about the humanity of the unborn and is available to you now free of charge on dailywire.com. Join me in thanking Preborn for bringing this important work out from behind the paywall, and consider making a donation today to support their life-saving work. You can sponsor one ultrasound for just $28. If you have the means, you can sponsor Preborn's entire network for a day for $5,000. Go to preborn.com/Knowles to donate today. Preborn.com/Knowles, or dial pound 250, say keyword baby. That is pound 250, keyword baby. DNC's kicking off, baby, and I am so happy to say I am not there. I flew out for the RNC. I said, there's no way I'm going to miss it. Got to sit down with Don Jr. and all sorts of other wonderful Republicans. It was a great time. Everyone was well behaved. Went out afterwards, maybe had a couple Coca-Colas with some of our GOP friends. The DNC, however, is not so happy an affair. In fact, everyone, including and especially the Democrats, is expecting all manner of violence, so much so that Chicago businesses are boarding up in advance of the Dems coming to town.
The Democratic National Convention is set to begin. Area businesses are taking some precautions.
WGN's Andrea Medina shows you how some companies in the loop are starting to board up ahead of the big event.
Given the uncertainty surrounding next week's convention, businesses are taking steps to prevent potential threats to their property, like looting or vandalism, by adding protection.
We've had zero indication that there would be any protections down in the loop.
That's why the owner of Sid Jerome Menswear is reinforcing his downtown store by covering up the windows with plywood in anticipation of possible civil unrest and violent protests that may come from the Democratic National Convention next week.
We know from past experiences that something could ensue, so we wanted to be proactive and get ahead of it.
I love the mundane, nonchalant way in which this business owner admits that Democrats are terrorists. Well, we know from, in that lovely Midwestern Chicago accent, we know from past events, that, what happens when all the Democrats get together is they start breaking and burning and looting and murdering. And so we just figured it'd be good to be a little bit proactive, don't you think? And it's more Minnesota than Chicago, I guess. In any case, and they burned down Minnesota too. In any case, we're just going to board up with plywood so that we don't all get looted and murdered and burnt to the ground. They didn't board up businesses in Milwaukee. Doesn't that just tell you everything about the state of American politics? The liberal establishment tells us that Republicans are violent and they're insurrectionists and they pose a grave threat to the Republic and January 6th was the worst day ever, whatever. However, they don't board up the businesses for the RNC. They do board up the businesses for the DNC. And they're wise to do it. Because when a lot of Democrats get together and they start talking politics, they start behaving like complete animals, and they turn whatever polity they're in into a simulacrum of the third world. That's just how it goes. So very wise. All the more reason that I'm thrilled that I'm not in Chicago this week for the DNC. Happy to cover it remotely. I don't think we're going to miss very much. Biden, I'm told, is speaking tonight. I thought, wait a second, why is the president speaking on the first night? He should be speaking. Oh, right, because he doesn't matter anymore. Because he's effectively not the president anymore. Because now the nomination is going to Kamala Harris, whom we are told, they're retconning all of this, is an important part of this administration. It's basically, 2 for 1, Kamala and Joe running things for the past 3 years. Except all the stuff that's gone bad, Kamala bears no responsibility for that. But the stuff that plausibly could have gone well, none of which actually did go well, Kamala gets all the credit for that. Well, because we're facing all this uncertainty. That's my favorite line of this whole diatribe from the business owner. He says, well, there's a lot of uncertainty, What's the uncertainty? We know who the Democrat nominee is. We know who the Democrat running mate is. We know who the current president is and when he's going to speak. There's nothing really to settle. Democrats don't get to vote for their nominee. It's just a coup, a soft coup by Kamala. She took it over without winning a single primary vote while running for the nomination. So what's the uncertainty? Oh, the uncertainty is just how violent the Democrats are going to be. Okay. All right. We'll tune in. How could anybody support that? Well, one person is supporting that. He's not even officially a Democrat or a liberal. He's a guy who positions himself, who identifies as a conservative, but he's a conservative columnist for the New York Times, and this would be David French. David French, who was a popular conservative columnist for many years, has, since President Trump took over the GOP, become increasingly hostile toward Republicans and conservatives. And so he left, he was at National Review, then he went to The Bulwark, which was a publication that was founded as a kind of anti-Trump spin-off of National Review. But then he left there, and now he's at the New York Times. And initially, at least, David French was, actually, I suppose he still is a good representative of the hardcore Never Trump group, which is they couldn't quite bring themselves to vote for Hillary, but they'd vote third party. They'd vote for that guy, Egg McMuffin, or actually, David considered running for president as a third party candidate. Now, however, David, in the New York Times, has endorsed Kamala Harris. Now, I understood why some people had questions about Trump in 2016. He's a colorful character. People weren't quite sure what his positions were. So I at least understood it. I was pro-Trump in 2016, but I understood the reluctance to support him among some conservatives. It was much harder to understand in 2020. It's really, really hard to understand in 2024. Furthermore, I always thought it was stupid to throw away your vote and vote third party for Egg McMuffin or whoever else. But I at least understand how you can twist yourself into the logical pretzel to do it. But to actively vote for the Democrat, especially a Democrat as awful as Hillary Clinton or then Joe Biden, or now especially Kamala Harris, how can you do it? How could you call yourself a conservative and support a woman who is the most radically pro-abortion candidate we've ever had, who is radically in favor of the kids, who is radically in favor of open borders? She's the border czar, and we've had more pour across the border than ever before. A woman who's in favor of socialist medicine for illegal aliens, actually. How could you possibly call yourself a conservative and support that? So I read David's column. David's always been a nice fella personally, so I said, okay, I'll read this column. keep as open a mind as I can. And here's the argument. Here, I'll just break it down. I'm not going to read the column word for word. If you want to read the New York Times, which I don't suggest, you can do it yourself. He opens up, he says, I'm pro-life, but I'm voting for Kamala. Already off the bat, he's saying, look, I've got bona fides on the right. I'm pro-life, and I know it's so great, but I'm voting for Kamala because Trump has moved the party away from Reaganism. Now, first of all, Ronald Reagan was president 40 years ago, and the man's been dead for 20 years, and I think it's good to let people rest at a certain point. You can't go, we're not going to go dig up the corpse of John Adams, are we, and say, okay, the Federalist platform of 1800, that's what we run on. No, political circumstances change, and politics is about applying eternal principles to constantly changing political circumstances. But the irony of saying Trump moved the party away from Reaganism is that that's not even true. Trump's slogan is a slogan he took from Ronald Reagan, Make America Great Again. Trump's view on illegal immigration is basically Reagan's view. Reagan said illegal immigration is illegal. It's not that complicated. Trump's view on the military is very similar to Reagan's, which is peace through strength. Ronald Reagan, practically speaking, was kind of a dove. He spoke like a hawk, but he was kind of a dove. Don't forget, even after the Beirut barracks bombings, you have American troops seriously hurt and killed. Ronald Reagan doesn't double down and start up new wars in the Middle East. Ronald Reagan actually pulls the troops out of Beirut. So you might say that Trump has moved the party away from Bushism. He's moved the party away from adventurism overseas. That's true. But he's actually kind of moved it back toward Ronald Reagan's actual views. And he's moved it even further back. He's restored some of the GOP support for tariffs. Ronald Reagan sometimes did that, supported tariffs on steel. Abraham Lincoln basically founded the GOP on tariffs. So in any case, that argument doesn't hold any water at all. No one lies as much or significantly as Trump. That's one of David's arguments. He says, look, all politicians lie, but no one lies as seriously or as frequently as Trump. That's obviously not true. Barack Obama said, if you like your health care, you can keep your health care. And then he took people's health care away. That's a pretty egregious lie. That's worse than what any lie Donald Trump ever said. Joe Biden said that Donald Trump presents an existential threat to the Republic, and he called Nazis fine people, and he models himself after Hitler. That established the justification for an assassination attempt on Trump. That's a lot more serious than, Mika Brzezinski has a nasty face or whatever Trump says. Kamala Harris has lied about virtually every position she's ever had. Pretty significant matters of public policy. What policy position has Trump lied about? What politically significant position has Trump lied about? I can't think of one. All of the recent Democrats and Democrat nominees for president have lied much more frequently, much more egregiously than Trump. Joe Biden, for goodness sakes, Joe Biden had to drop out of the 1988 presidential race because he was such an historic liar. Doesn't hold water at all. Trump's lies are contagious. He says Trump's lies are contagious because some people think the 2020 election was rigged. The 2020 election was rigged, okay? I don't know how else to... They changed all the election rules in the weeks and months before the election. In some cases, they violated not just the law, but state constitutions, like in the case of Pennsylvania, by pushing widespread mail-in ballots. They put ballot drop boxes far away from county clerk offices. They did it by taking money from people like Mark Zuckerberg, funneling it through left-wing nonprofits. And yes, you heard it right, breaking the election rules and the law. So yeah, it was rigged. You're not a liar for saying that. It's possible to lie about how the 2020 election was rigged, but to say that it was rigged, give me a break. That's just obvious. Political violence has no place in the Democrat process. And Donald Trump, he pushes political violence. Kamala Harris, the woman that this man just endorsed, raised money to bail out violent rioters during the George Floyd riots. What did Trump do? BLM, burn the country down, sea to shining sea. Maxine Waters, prominent Democrat, says you got to push back on Republicans when you see them in public. Hillary Clinton said you can't be civil with your opponents. What did Donald Trump do? Donald Trump said peacefully protest on January 6th. That's what he said. And then there was one instance of political violence on January 6th. And it's when a trigger-happy cop killed a Trump supporter. Virtually all the political violence in America has come from the left. David endorses them. Trump is changing the church, he says. By the church, David is referring to, he's not referring to the Catholic Church, he's not referring to the Eastern Orthodox Church, he's not referring even to the Anglican Church, he's referring to evangelical and non-denominational congregations. Okay. And he's saying Trump is making these places so much more Trumpy and right-wing or whatever. Is that true? I have a ton of evangelical and non-denominational friends. Many of you listening right now are evangelical and non-denominational. Would you say that the evangelical congregations have gotten more right-wing, more conservative over the last 5-6 years? No, they've actually gotten more left-wing. And it's not because of Trump. They've gotten more left-wing because of George Floyd, because of BLM. I saw it. I mean, I was shocked because the evangelicals had been such stalwarts for the political right. But during BLM, a lot of those groups moved significantly to the left, not to the right. Trump watered down the GOP platform on pro-life. Did he? He's the first president who showed up, sitting president, to show up to the March for Life, and he appointed the justices who, after 49 years, got Roe v. Wade overruled. You're going to go after Trump's pro-life bona fides, and then after the Dobbs decision, which overruled Roe v. Wade, the political calculations changed. It's a different world, and so you've got to adapt your strategies politically to that changing world. But Trump said that himself. He said, "Look, we got to get elected." I don't see any evidence that Trump has moved the GOP to the left on abortion. If anything, practically speaking, he's moved it to the right. Trump invited Starr to speak at the GOP convention. That's one of David's arguments against him. I don't know. Maybe we should cast stones at that lady. Is that what we should have done? That lady goes up at the GOP convention. We just start throwing stones at her? I don't think so. Had she promoted something, that would have been a bad thing. But what did she do? She came out, she said, this is Amber Rose. She said, my dad was right. He loves Trump, and he was right. I didn't believe him. Trump's not racist. He's good. Vote for Trump. Okay, great. And then he says more abortions in recent years. That's, again, not because of Trump. That's because of the abortion pill. That's a technological change. Kamala would be tougher on Putin. Are you kidding me? Putin, the only president in my lifetime on whose watch Putin has not further invaded a country is Trump. He invaded Georgia under Bush. He invaded Crimea under Obama. He just kind of chilled under Trump because he was afraid that Trump would blow up Moscow. And then he invaded into Ukraine on Biden's watch. In fact, Biden invited him. He said, if it's a minor incursion, we won't do anything about it. Finally, the only hope of restoring true conservatism is to elect Democrats for the foreseeable future. In other words, the only way that conservatives can win is by, those aren't David's exact words, but that's the argument he's making. The only way that we can win is to lose. Not very persuasive. He's a nice guy. I feel bad criticizing him. You know, he's always been personally very nice, but he's just completely lost the plot. And there are a handful of hardcore never-Trumpers who just hate this guy personally, who are making ridiculous arguments that can be swatted down with a sentence or two, to bend over backwards into pretzels to support Kamala Harris, the most radical left-wing presidential nominee we have ever had in American history. Now, speaking of sitting down and talking to people, in the latest episode of Michael And, I had the honor of sitting down with Captain Sam Brown, a military hero and Purple Heart recipient, whose military convoy went up in flames after he made a daring move to try to help some of his compatriots. Nearly took his life. Sam shared his incredible journey of courage and resilience, from surviving life-threatening injuries on the battlefield to now running for a Senate seat. Check out this teaser.
If you don't mind going back in time, what happened?
We were providing security for a convoy that was delivering turbines to a dam to help power southern Afghanistan. There's not a warning when your life is about to go up in flames. I had 3 sensations. My truck got blown in the air, and so I felt this sinking feeling into my seat. The blast overpressure made everything go silent. And in a moment, I suddenly realized who I was. I threw my arms in the air in a moment of desperation. It was true conviction that I needed God. And I screamed, Jesus, save me. And I had these 3 final thoughts. How long is it going to take to burn to death? What's the transition from this life to the next going to be like? And I made the decision to give up the will to live. The miracle then came.
Watch the full episode now at the Michael Knowles YouTube channel. Do not forget to subscribe for the ad-free version on DailyWire Plus. Some Republicans do not get the stakes here. Especially as the DNC goes on, you're going to see all this fawning media coverage of Kamala, most wonderful lady ever, and maybe you're going to see her poll numbers go up, maybe. So some Republicans are saying this is Trump's fault. Any other Republican, they say, would be running 10 points ahead of Kamala right now. In fact, that is the line from Chris Sunnunu, who is the Republican governor of New Hampshire.
Almost any other Republican candidate would be winning this race by 10 points. And so the message is very clear. If you stick to the issues, if you stick to what matters, this should be an easy race for Donald Trump. It really should. The delta that you're seeing right now is Trump does better with males by about 10 points, but where this giant shift in August has come is with the female voter. Frank Luntz pointed this out in his polling. He's down 10, 12 points at least with females, and they're going to come out in much bigger numbers than they previously would have if Biden were the candidate. If you talk about these economic issues, if you talk about, remind folks that he's running against the most liberal and most unpopular vice president in history that has now laid out the worst economic plan ever laid out by a Democrat candidate. Even Obama's team is panning this as a disaster for America. So she then picked her own vice presidential candidate, which is also one of the most liberal, progressive governors in the country that has huge issues in terms of supporting public safety. All of these things are lining up for a huge Republican win. He's got to deliver. And we've all showed him exactly that playbook to do so.
Who is Chris Sunnunu? Who is this guy to give advice to the Trump campaign? Chris Sunnunu is the governor, the moderate Republican governor of an unusual state. New Hampshire, it's a great state. It's kind of unusual, very libertarian, sort of a purple state. What does this guy know about national elections? Does this guy ever run for president successfully? What does he know? And does he seriously think, this is the bigger point, does he seriously think that any other Republican running, had any other Republican gotten the nomination, that the Democrats would not be doing the exact same thing to that person that they're doing to Trump, successfully even damaging their poll numbers? Do you remember Romney? Remember when milquetoast Mitt Romney came out and the Libs successfully convinced people that Romney wanted to put black people in chains, that he in school chopped their hair off, that he wanted to torture his family dog. This is Mitt Romney. This is as milquetoast a guy as ever there was. They would do it to anybody. Okay, you really want to look at the strength or weakness of Donald Trump. Look at how Kamala is reacting to him. The only good parts of the Kamala Harris campaign, and the only parts that are getting plaudits and really catching on, are the parts of the campaign she is stealing from the Trump campaign. Now, when you want to ramp up one of your organizations, you got to check out Ramp. Go to ramp.com/Knowles. If you're a finance professional looking for a better way to maximize productivity and cut wasteful spending, Ramp could be for you. Ramp is a corporate card and spend management software designed to help you save time and put money back in your pocket. With Ramp, you can issue cards to every employee with limits and restrictions. You can also stop wasting time at the end of every month by automating your expense reporting. Ramp's accounting software automatically collects receipts and categorizes your expenses in real time so you don't have to. You will never have to chase down a receipt again. Your employees will no longer spend hours submitting expense reports. The time you'll save each month on employee expenses will allow you to close your books 8 times faster. Ramp is so easy to use. Get started in less than 15 minutes, whether you have 5 employees or 5,000, and now get $250 when you join Ramp. Go to ramp.com/Knowles, K-N-W-L-E-S, ramp.com/Knowles, K-N-W-L-E-S. That is ramp.com/Knowles. Cards issued by Sutton Bank and Celtic Bank, members FDIC. Terms and conditions apply. That is ramp.com/Knowles. On Friday, we're going to have the voice mailbag and the written mailbag. If you want to send in a written mailbag, it's very easy. You go to dailywire.com, you click on the shows, you click on my show, and you click submit a mailbag question. You can also submit a voice mailbag question. You record it on your phone, on your computer, however you record audio, and then you just attach that file as an attachment in the mailbag email. Very simple. Just on the show page, boom, leave a mailbag question. But I implore you, limit your remarks to 60 seconds. Some people, they send in the story of their life. It's like I'm getting an audiobook of 150 hours here. I can't air that on the show. Ideally, less than 60 seconds would be better, and then I can put it on the show. The only good parts of the Kamala Harris campaign are the ones she's stealing from Trump. Kamala Harris just came out and proposed a $6,000 child tax credit for new parents. This, just shortly after J.D. Vance proposes a $5,000 child tax credit. So They're there taking the I want to be president test. And JD has this good idea, $5,000 child tax credit. That's really cool. That's really interesting. And then Kamala's looking over his shoulder. She goes, but I'm going to do 6. What if we turn the amplifier up to 11? But the reason this really matters is I want you to hear how these were covered in the media. So I'm looking at ABC News. This is the same news outlet, okay? So I'm controlling for all possible factors of, this editor likes this guy or that editor likes this person. When J.D. Vance came out and proposed the $5,000 child tax credit, here's the ABC News headline. Vance argued for higher tax rate on childless Americans in 2021 interview. This monster, this absolute animal, wants to make childless people pay more money. He wants to discriminate against. Okay, that's ABC News when Vance did it. When Kamala suggested an even higher child tax credit, ABC News. Harris offers proposals to cut food and housing costs, trying to blunt Trump's economic attacks. It's the same proposal. Kamala's is just a more pronounced, even a more exaggerated version of the proposal. But Kamala didn't argue for a higher tax rate on the childless. No. I mean, she did, but no, because that sounds bad. She just offered proposals to cut food and housing costs. And then you read the article, the new one about Kamala. She stressed tax breaks for families, as well as middle and lower income people, promising to expand the child tax credit up to $3,600 and $6,000 for children in their first year of life. Wow. She's stressing tax breaks for families. Not JD, that dirty, rotten jerk, who wants to raise taxes on the childless through the same exact policy. No, she wants to help support families. This is another reason I can't take the Chris Sunnunu seriously, or the people who are not only attacking Trump, but saying J.D. Vance was a terrible choice for VP. Did you wake up yesterday? You were born yesterday. You've never seen a presidential race. You don't realize they would be doing this to any running mate of any Republican. J.D. Vance, extremely intelligent, extremely well-educated, came from nothing. Self-made man, in touch, more so than many other Republicans, with ordinary Americans who don't, spend their lives at the Chamber of Commerce and, swilling Chablis. This guy, very impressive, very articulate. The best knocks they have on him are I don't even know what the attacks are. That he made fun of the childless cat lady caricature that everybody makes fun of. Not even the individuals, just like a caricature, that he wore a blonde wig at some party in college. I think they were going after him for that. And then they had to make up something about a couch because there's so little to attack this guy on that they have to make it up. But it doesn't matter. They're going to convince you he was the worst choice. They're going to convince you Trump's the worst choice because this is how they cover it. It's not that, they've done or said bad things or good things, or it's just that anything they say is necessarily bad. Anything they do is necessarily bad. And when Democrats say and do the exact same thing, that is necessarily good. That's how the political media ecosystem functions. Now, I am not working for the Trump campaign, as you know. I support the Trump campaign. I'm promoting it, but I don't work for them, despite what Kamala Harris says about me. The Kamala campaign has been one of the great publicists of my show, so I thank them for it. Between Media Matters, Right Wing Watch, and now the Kamala campaign itself, my show's getting a ton of publicity. So that's great, because I like when my message gets out there. But they do tend to lie about me. So you might recall, I mentioned this on August 2nd, a couple weeks ago. On August 2nd, the Kamala campaign broke out a clip from my show and said, top Trump operative calls for ending no-fault divorce under Project 2025. And then there's a clip of my show. And I thought, okay, well, I'm not a Trump operative, though I support him. I'm not in any way affiliated with Project 2025. I don't mention it in the clip, though I think it's great. I love Project 2025 and the Heritage Foundation, but I'm not affiliated with it in any way. And I do think divorce is bad. So I, like all normal people, think divorce is bad. and to be minimized, but so that's true. And the clip was good. But, most of the things they said about me from the Kamala Harris campaign were not true. So now they've outdone themselves. They and she got community noted for this. But they've come back. They've broken out a clip from my show and says, Trump operative, I guess I got downgraded from top Trump operative to just ordinary Trump operative, middle of the pack Trump operative, pushing Project 2025. Again, didn't mention Project 2025 once. And then here, this is ostensibly a quote that I said. Maybe we should unwind the very liberal premise in our civil rights law that men and women are the same under the law. Now, they broke out the clip. Listen to the clip and see if that's what they wrote about me is reflective of what I said. Maybe men and women really are different. Maybe not only our culture has to reflect that, but maybe our law ought to reflect that too. Very, very difficult though, because to do that, you would have to unwind the extremely radically liberal premise that is now part of our law and part of our civil rights law, which says that men and women are, for all intents and purposes, exactly the same. You'd have to get rid of that premise. Does that sound like a Trump operative pushing Project 2025? I don't think that phrase showed up anywhere in there, saying that men and women shouldn't be the same under the law? Not quite. Now, I do say that men and women are not, for all intents and purposes, exactly the same, and that it's actually a pretty recent change to our civil rights law that we treat men and women as exactly the same. Because, for instance, men and women today, for now, well, actually, I'm not so sure if this is even permitted anymore, but until very recently, men and women were allowed to have their own bathrooms. So women were not forced to use the bathroom with men. Women were not forced to change at the public pool with men. And the reason for that is that men and women are different. Liberals, the Biden-Harris administration, have done everything they can to force men into the women's bathroom and to force men into your daughter's changing room at the public pool. But I think, call me old-fashioned, I think little girls should not be forced to change in front of men. Call me a fuddy-duddy. Here's another difference between men and women. I think women should not be drafted for the military. I don't think we should send our women out to the front lines to be shot and beheaded by jihadis. I don't know. Maybe you can at least say chivalry isn't dead. I just think men and women are different in that regard, and the law should treat men and women differently. I think if you murder a man or if you murder a pregnant woman, those are different things. Because a woman can conceive life. A woman maybe has another human being inside of her. The liberals definitely want to get rid of that idea. And they did successfully get rid of that idea in New York when they legalized abortion up until the moment of birth and then lit up the World Trade Center pink to celebrate this. It just seems to me men and women are different. That's what the Kamala campaign is attacking me for and lying about it, being rather dishonest about it. But I think we need to embrace this in a way. I mean, not their dishonesty, not their outright lies, but yeah, we're the party who think that men and women are different. And we think we should protect women and, in protecting the differences between the sexes, protect men and just protect everybody, but recognize that we're different. Isn't diversity supposed to be a good thing? No, really. They don't want real diversity. They want to break down everybody. They want to use diversity to break down everybody into atomized individuals, or even further, break us down, split our body from our souls in the case of the ideology, and then kind of just meld us all together in one hodgepodge commie collective where it's all just a big pile of goop. Well, we don't like that. We like natural, organic difference that can, in service of the common good, make a political unity. That's what we want. It's the sort of thing that our founding fathers talked about, the men who built our country. E pluribus unum, out of many one, a United States of America that doesn't deny reality. Okay, they have to deny a lot. They have to lie outright. Now, when the Harris campaign is not lying, when the Harris campaign is not stealing the ideas of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, when Harris actually has to propose her own policies, they go over like a lead balloon. Here is Kamala suggesting the government start fixing prices.
I will work to pass the first ever federal ban on price gauging on food. Price
gauging. Apparently Kamala is as good at reading a teleprompter as Joe Biden is. I think she meant to say price gouging. I don't know what price gauging is, but she's going to stop price gouging on food. What does this mean? This means that since Kamala's been in office, the cost of food has soared. It's gone up dramatically. And this is bad for her politically. Now, it's soared because of their stupid policies, the policies that Democrats have been pushing for a while that led to mass inflation, which Republicans predicted. We knew that this would happen. So now, to stop that, they don't stop their dumb economic policies. They add more dumb economic policies on top of it, and they say, you can't raise the prices any further. So now, we're not all that far away from Soviet-style, Tsar Kamala decides what the price of ground coffee is or something like that. Trump is calling this the Maduro plan after the communist, socialist dictator of Venezuela.
She's running on the Maduro plan. We call it the Maduro plan, like something straight out of Venezuela or the Soviet Union. This announcement is an admission that her economic policies have totally failed and caused really a catastrophe for our country, and beyond that, a catastrophe in the world.
So Financial Times is reporting that there's a new ABC News, Washington Post, Ipsos poll taken last week. So you got a lot of relatively liberal news outlets involved here, showing that Harris had a 6-point lead over Trump. However, when it came to questions about the economy and inflation, Trump has a 9-point lead over Harris. Harris is completely underwater on the economy because she's proposing Soviet-style nonsense like this. This could really hurt her. The economy could really hurt her. And when you go back to the 92 election, you have James Carville, Bill Clinton's strategist, who famously said, "It's the economy, stupid. It's the economy." You know, the Kamala campaign trying to distract with all this nonsense. But when you focus on real kitchen table issues, when you talk about people's wallets, things are looking pretty bad. And you look, the stock market is really teetering right now. If there is any kind of economic turmoil between now and November, even the Libs are admitting that could tank the Kamala ticket, which is how Trump got his best campaign commercial yet. We'll get to that in 1 second. First, though, advance tickets for Am I Racist are selling fast nationwide. However, we're hearing that theaters across the country are not yet carrying Am I Racist? So if you haven't snagged your tickets, go to amiracist.com right now. Every single ticket sold today determines how many theaters will showcase this film come September 13th. amiracist.com. Secure those advance tickets. I have 2 favorite comments from yesterday. First one from the Drummers Workshop, Norm's Music. I didn't even look at the name. It's just that the Drummers Workshop, Norm's Music has great comments. Tim Walls regrets the white guy taco remark. It was in the fajita the moment. White guy taco, the fajita the moment. Then my second favorite comment from Friday is from Big Guy Hero Dude. Food is a perfectly fine thing to discuss, but when Kamala Harris is faced with real issues, she doesn't want to taco about it. She doesn't want to taco about it. So basically, if you want to have the favorite comment of the day, you just need a really obvious pun. And then you'll probably win it. President Trump has just released his best ad yet.
A loaf of bread cost 50% more today than it did before the pandemic. Ground beef is up almost 50%.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
Love it. I know it's an internet ad. I hope he puts that on TV. That is a killer, devastating ad. It also makes me more excited for this debate. When Kamala, look, even that was obviously scripted. That was at a rally in Raleigh, North Carolina. She totally left herself vulnerable to that kind of attack from Trump. And this is the advantage Kamala has in the race, is that she's claiming the benefits of the incumbency, but she's trying to distance herself from the baggage of the incumbency, and she's running in that way as a challenger. But that's also her disadvantage, because a challenger campaign has to run against the status quo and promise to do something new in the future. But she is the status quo. So when she runs against the status quo, food's up 50%, this kind of product at the grocery store is up 30%, she's running against herself. Immigration's absolutely terrible. You're the borders lady. So Trump can just run with those clips. I love it. Now, speaking of women who have done very bad things, shifting gears away from politics for a second, there's a woman who's been charged in Matthew Perry's death. Matthew Perry, sitcom star from the 90s, he was on Friends, had a drug problem his whole life, and he died, and the cause of death was acute ketamine overdose. though ostensibly he was taking the ketamine to try to get off other drugs. And anyway, this lady who goes by the Ketamine Queen has been charged. Really good stuff. As America faces the worst drug crisis we've ever faced before, this massive opioid fentanyl crisis, fentanyl pouring across our open southern border. The border's open because Kamala Harris wants it to be open and has left it open. As that happens, everyone in this country, at the very least, knows someone who's been affected by the fentanyl crisis. And more likely, this has been going on so long, more likely you know someone who died or who suffered an overdose because of it. You know someone personally. I do. I think most people do. One way that you can try to stop this is you got to get tougher on the drug dealers. Like this lady, the Ketamine Queen, allegedly. And the left doesn't want to do this. The left has been running on letting drug dealers out of jail. And in part, they lie about them being drug dealers. They say, oh, these are people who, they were just carrying a dime bag of marijuana or something. That's almost never true. The people who go to jail for simple marijuana possession pretty much always are taking plea deals, and usually they're drug dealers themselves. So the left has been pushing letting drug dealers out of prison for a long time. And there are many on the right who have been pushing that too. Oh, we need to go a little easier. We need to liberalize drugs during the midst of the worst drug crisis we've ever faced. And these poor drug dealers, they didn't know any better. They grew up in the ghetto. It's hard, it's tough out there on the streets or whatever. No, these people are now, and maybe this wasn't always true, but now, after so many years of this fentanyl crisis where you don't know, one puff on a joint. When I was a kid, one puff on a joint, you'd be fine. You'd probably cough and look foolish, but you'd be fine. Now, one puff on a joint, you could die because so many drugs are laced with fentanyl, which can just kill you after one puff or one little pill or one little anything. So these drug dealers, I don't care how stupid they are, they know that fentanyl is a major problem. They know, and sometimes they're even consciously aware that it's in their product. These guys are murderers. They're peddling poison, and not even just mild poison. They're peddling lethal poison on people. They need to go to jail for a long time, okay? And if the left doesn't want to take that ground, at the very least, the right needs to wise up. And I don't know how we think we're pandering to when we say we need to let drug dealers out of prison. No. The GOP platform should be, we're going to put drug dealers in prison for a much longer time. When you see these particular cases, especially in this case, the Ketamine Queen is a white lady. When it's a black person, then there's this racial issue added onto it, which both parties want to pander about. But when we see this, we say, oh, we like Matthew Perry. He's a nationally beloved figure. And so this lady who was in any way involved in his death, she needs to go to jail. We all feel that. Well, you know what? We love the non-famous people who have been killed by drugs too. Okay? And we need to punish the drug dealers who kill the non-famous people too. No matter what one's ideology suggests. Now, speaking of centrist and even liberal policies from the right, President Trump is catching some flack from the right because he's come out and he said, look, we need to get really, really tough on illegal immigration so that we can have better legal immigration.
Basically, we're going to drill, baby, drill. We're going to get the energy prices down almost immediately, and we're going to close the border, and we're going to get the crooked ones out, the bad ones out, and we're going to let a lot of people come in because we need more people, especially with AI coming and all of the different things, and the farmers need, everybody needs. But we're going to make sure that they're not murderers, killers, drug dealers, and that we have largely right now.
Okay, a lot of people who are immigration restrictionists don't like this answer from President Trump. Because the problem with migration is not just that you have these criminals coming over. Well, they're all criminals if they're coming over illegally, but that's not the only problem. Going back to Aristotle, we read that immigration poses major challenges to republics because people just have different cultures, and it's difficult to assimilate people, and people maintain these kind of group identities for a long time. And it turns out diversity usually is not actually the strength of polities. That's the view of classical political philosophy. And then modern liberal philosophy denies reality on so many things, including the nature of a man and a woman, that we now say, endless mass migration is good, as long as they're good people. But not really. The problem is assimilation. The problem is that a country is more than just an idea. It's a people, and people develop habits and customs over generations, over centuries. And you can't just replace one people with another group of people. So this has irked some people who are immigration restrictionists. However, the reason I wouldn't be too harsh on it is that view, Trump's view on immigration, basically it comes down to illegal bad, legal good, is probably the furthest right view that is politically acceptable today. I'm not saying it's the ideal view, though practical politics is usually not about the ideal. But that is, I don't know. Do you think someone could run on severe immigration restriction? We're just not going to let people in and win an election. It might be a good policy. It worked pretty well in the early 20th century, but it probably wouldn't work. So I can't be angry at Trump for not doing something that would be politically dead on arrival and prevent him from winning. I can't really attack him for it. Though liberals are attacking J.D. Vance for articulating the further immigration restrictionist view. This is the new clip going around that they're using to smack Vance over the head.
Who do you think made those changes? Why did they make those changes? Why have we, or describe, please, the difference in our approach to who we decide to let into America, who can become an American? What changed? Who changed it? And what was the purpose? And what is the negative side effect?
Yeah, I think it's one of these things that's evolved over time, right? So obviously you had this massive wave of Italian and primarily Italian, Irish, and German immigration, right? And that had its problems, right? It had its consequences. You had higher crime rates. You had these sort of ethnic enclaves developing. You had inter-ethnic conflict in the country where you really hadn't had that before. And so there were downsides to it. Obviously, there were upsides too. And one of the cool things that we did in the 1920s is we just sort of slowed down immigration a little bit. We let those sort of populations who had come to the country as new citizens really incorporate themselves into the broader American fabric. That obviously was turned on its head in the 1960s with some of the things we did with our immigration laws.
I'm a descendant of two of those groups that he mentioned from around that time, the Irish and the Italians. He's saying, look, the Irish and the Italians, they brought some crime. And so I say this as a child. Part of my family was over on the Mayflower, but other parts came over in those later waves of immigration. I'm saying, with all the credibility that comes from being in this group, he's totally right. They did. They did bring crime, okay? And it was smart to then restrict immigration and let these groups assimilate. And they have. One of the markers that the Irish assimilated is that you get Irish conservatives and you get Irish liberals. One of the markers that the Italians assimilated is you get Nancy Pelosi as an Italian and you get Antonin Scalia as an Italian. They politically assimilated. With mass migration, you don't get that. And it's a proof that if you support restricting immigration, as I do, as J.D. Vance is articulating here, as many conservatives do, it's not about hating some group. It's not about I don't like the Tibetans or whatever. It's about immigration itself. It's about how to make political systems work. It's about how people behave. It's about human nature. You can't just flood a country with foreigners and expect the country to remain the same. It doesn't work that way. That's what he's articulating. So if we're looking ahead to the future, if maybe J.D. Vance is the future of the MAGA movement, it's good. It's moving in the right direction. You got to win. You got to win. There's a clear path ahead. And this show, the Democrat convention, is all about boosting Kamala's poll numbers. Let's see. If the Libs torch Chicago, it might actually have the opposite effect. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, KNWLAS, at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.
Republicans are Nazis. You cannot separate yourselves from the bad white people.
Growing up, I never thought much about race. It never really seemed to matter that much, at least not to me.
Am I racist?
I would really appreciate it if you left.
I'm trying to learn. I'm on this journey. If I'm going to sort this out, I need to go deeper undercover.
They gonna say I'm racist.
Joining us now is Matt, certified DEI expert.
Here's my certification. And what you're doing is you're stretching out of your whiteness. This is more for you in this field. Is America inherently racist?
The word inherent is challenging there.
I want to rename the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument.
America is racist to its bones.
So inherently.
Yeah, this country is a piece of...
white
Folks, trash, white supremacy, white woman, white boy.
Is there a black person around here?
There's a black person right here. Does he not exist?
Say I'm racist.
Hi, Robin.
Hi, what's your name?
I'm Matt.
I just had to ask who you are because you have to be careful.
Never be too careful.
They gon' say you racist.
Buy your tickets now. In theaters September 13th. Rated PG-13.